The United States wants to stop China's technological and military advance and has begun to implement a series of blockades on the most geopolitically strategic sector of the 21st century, microchips. In a plan that, if it has the expected results, would allow it to strike a strategic blow to China, render their technological sector obsolete, weaken its military, and irreparably damage its economy. But will the US be able to achieve it? In 1958, Texas Instruments engineer Jack Kilby developed what would be the basis of all modern technology and the engine of technological development that would take place over the following decades, the microchip. This element, made mainly of silicon and that in its humble beginnings had only 4 transistors, was a key piece in the space race and in the American technological development. And although in the beginning, the leading companies in this technology, such as Texas Instruments and Intel, mainly had the United States government as a client for military and space applications, everything would change in the 1970s and 1980s with the personal computer revolution that made the demand for microchips grow exponentially. But scaling this production was turning out to be quite a headache for US companies because, although microchips are made from silicon, which is one of the most abundant elements in the Earth's crust, the purification process is extremely complex, and the microchips had gone on to have thousands of transistors on a single chip. That's why US companies began to specialize in design and outsource production to allied Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan in order to reduce costs and support these economies while maintaining their influence in Asia. But since their inception, microchips have maintained a priority status in national security, and for this reason the export of these elements and the technology to manufacture them to the Soviet Union and China, the United States' enemies during the Cold War, have been prohibited. Something that would be repeated almost exactly decades later. And soon these countries began to develop their own industry, with the case of Taiwan being one of the most notable, and where the government took the development of this industry as an absolute priority, sending students to American universities so that they could later work in microchip companies and could learn as much as possible from the industry, in addition to heavily subsidizing production projects in the country. But unlike Japan and South Korea, in Taiwan they specialized in production and assembly, leaving the design to American companies, something that, beyond being a good business practice, had the objective of creating strong ties with the United States and an essential sector for this country, and that this would serve as protection for an eventual invasion of the island. Both approaches have proven to be successful and would allow Taiwan to have the most important company for the production and assembly of this technology, TSMC. And this industry, where production was initially entirely in the United States, a few decades later became an entire ecosystem where dozens of American, Japanese, and South Korean companies were involved in the software, equipment, and design, while TSMC in Taiwan and Samsung in South Korea produced about 92% and 8% of the most advanced microchips in the world, but with lithography equipment made only by the Dutch company ASML, which in turn uses technology from the United States and Japan. And thanks to this integration, to the large investment by each company and the high demand that was generated for advanced microchips for cell phones, satellites, automobiles, and military applications, among others, Moore's Law has been right, as proposed by Intel co-founder Gordon Moore, who says that every 18 to 24 months the computing power in microchips would double. This law implies that to be only a couple of years behind the most advanced technology is to have only a fraction of its computational power. And as the Cold War was drawing to a close, China began to re-establish diplomatic ties with the United States and be the recipient of investment from this country, allowing it to develop its technology sector. But eventually it came to the same conclusion as the United States and understood the strategic power of microchips, which, being the basis of technology, and technology being associated with all economic and military sectors, put China in a very vulnerable geopolitical position by depending on the United States, Japan, and Taiwan. And for this reason it sought to develop its own production chain that would allow it independence from any other country. And to achieve this, it used a strategy similar to that of Taiwan and sought to attract back to the country all the employees of companies that were part of the microchip production chain and heavily subsidized research and production. managing to develop the entire production chain within the country, although relegated with respect to the most advanced microchips in the world. However, there were some drawbacks to this plan, with one of the most high-profile cases being that of Zhongchang Yu, an engineer who abandoned ASML and founded STAL Inc., being accused of stealing ASML corporate secrets and being one of many people backed by the government of China to achieve it. And cases like this would end up being one of the elements that would trigger the trade war between the United States and China. With accusations of theft of intellectual property in an industry the United States considers essential to national security and roughly comparable to the outright theft of military secrets.
We have a tremendous intellectual property theft situation going on, which likewise is hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's on a yearly basis.
And what were initially measures by Donald Trump, such as the imposition of tariffs on Chinese products, the restriction on investment by Chinese companies in U.S. high-tech companies, and the restriction of imports from companies that had violated U.S. intellectual property, escalated with Joe Biden to the prohibition of exports of advanced microchips and machinery, software, and any element with U.S. technology to China that could be used for the production of advanced microchips. And China has been accused by the United States of producing hypersonic missiles and other types of advanced weapons, which contain American technology. And this adds to a threat that could be getting closer: the invasion of Taiwan.
The complete reunification of our country must be and can be realized.
And as you probably know, the world looks with expectation at the possible invasion of Taiwan to unify the country, which, summarizing history in extreme, was divided after the Civil War, where the army led by Mao Zedong defeated the led by Chiang Kai-shek, who took refuge in Taiwan, and from where he established a government parallel to that of Mao Zedong, who at the time could not invade the island because they had the support of the United States Army. And Taiwan, which produces about 92% of the world's advanced microchips, has joined the United States in restricting the export of this technology to China, and Japan and the Netherlands may soon follow, with Washington's diplomatic efforts now focusing on South Korea to take the same measures. And in this way, not only the microchips, but also the software, parts and design that have some degree of U.S. intellectual property cannot be exported to China. But what effects could these measures have on China's economy? If the United States succeeds, it would not only slow down the development of China's microchip industry and cause serious damage to the supply chain and China's technology production, but would greatly set back China's technology and military industry. China would also lag behind in the development of artificial intelligence, where having more advanced microchips makes a huge difference. Currently, the most advanced microchips in China are usually around 7 nanometers and have millions of transistors, while TSMC and Samsung, for example, have plans to start mass-producing 2 nanometers microchips in 2024 and 2025, with higher transistor density. In addition, China still faces challenges to produce its microchips with the same efficiency and in such a massive way as TSMC and Samsung, and this gap could increase significantly over the years in this new context. Therefore, it faces an extreme technological challenge where the odds are against it because it must practically alone face decades of investment and research from 5 countries that have formed an ecosystem where all are essential and intertwined, and where expecting only one country to develop this technology is very optimistic. However, even if the US plan works, it would be very naive to think that it will not also have consequences for its economy. The growth and development of both countries has been favored in recent decades by trade ties between the two, and any damage to the Chinese economy will imply damage to United States companies with Chinese operations, investments in China, or that have China as one of its main clients. And companies like NVIDIA, which produces graphics cards and processors that are used for artificial intelligence applications, have been one of the most affected, but other companies like Apple and Tesla have also stated in their financial reports the challenges that these changes could imply in their production in China, increasing costs and reducing production efficiency. It would also be very innocent to think that China will not react, And although, as I have told you in other videos, it has taken another approach, it cannot be ruled out that it also takes measures against US companies and in the supply of less advanced microchips, which in any case have its place in the industry and of which China is the world's largest producer. And the billion-dollar losses that dozens of technology companies from both countries will incur could reduce investment in the sector and, as many experts have predicted, put an end to Moore's Law and significantly slow technological progress. And you, do you think China's technology sector will overcome this challenge? I would like to know your opinion. And if you found this information helpful, you may want to watch this video too. See you next time.